Oscar Bevis, IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast, here at the Matchroom Gym today with the man himself, Joe Cordina. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you, brother. Good. It's a bit tiring the end of the week, almost time, but yeah, the hard graft's done, and now I'm just looking forward to fight week.
Yeah, just 8 days out from the big one. Has it felt any different this time round in terms of camp and preparation? Obviously, we're not on fight week yet. Has it felt any different to before?
Nah, to be honest, it haven't. Mentally, it haven't. Physically, it has, because obviously, it's a big occasion, and it's for all the marbles. Yeah, he's grafted me, literally to the limit. So, yeah, I'm just glad all my hard work's done now. I just concentrate next week, sharpening up and getting the weight down, and performing on the night.
Obviously, turning over as an Olympian, there's always so much pressure, so much expectation. I know people kind of demand instant success at times. You turned over 5 years ago. Did you expect, when you turned over, it to be kind of the sort of journey you had? Did you expect it sooner, or was it always, let me settle into the pro game? Did you expect it this way?
To be honest, no. I wanted more fights, like more learning fights, but from my fifth fight, I was in the championship round. So I went from stopping everyone in 3 or 4 rounds to jumping into a 10 and 12 round of fights. So yeah, and because I live up here, when I'm in camp, I'm away from my family, so I need to spend time with my family. Also, I can't neglect them. So when I was up here, I was only able to do like 3 fights a year, which really and truly, when you're doing 10 and 12 rounders, that's enough, because it's not the fights I do, it's the camps. They drain you. And yeah, so from my 5th fight, I've been in championship fights. So yeah, I would have liked to have had a few more learning fights, and probably I would have liked to right now be in the 20 plus fights, but it hasn't worked out that way. I'm 14 fights in, but I'm fighting for a world title, and when I did turn over, I said to in interviews that I'd probably fight. I want to fight for a world title within my 15th fight, and this is my 15th fight. So yeah, it's I would have liked to have done a little bit different, but my goal was always the same, and my expectations were always the same. Yeah, and I'm not going to just take anything. It's got to be the right fight, right time, and I believe this is the right time. Don't get me wrong, I've been shouting for a world title. That's all I wanted. I wasn't bothered or asked about a British title. Don't get me wrong, it's a prestigious belt to win, and I'm glad I fought for it and won it. Come off title, I wasn't asked about that, but I'm glad I won it, because they're the fights you have to win and belts you have to win along the way to a world title. But all I've ever wanted was to be a world champion, and now it's my chance. I can touch it, I just got to grab it.
I mean, it's always kind of been there in terms of Ogawa. I remember when we spoke in Liverpool on fight week before your last fight, I think he'd just beaten Fazili, so it's kind of, although now you're sort of training for him, it's always kind of been him in the background, in the back of your mind.
Yeah, of course. There was a stage where the IBF, he was vacant, so we weren't sure who was going to be fighting for it, or who was the champion at the time. Obviously, I think Rakimov, Jojo Diaz missed the weight, but then drew against Rakimov, so it went vacant. But yeah, it was them sort of fighters were in the back of my mind. But we were ranked highly in the WBA, so we were sort of angling towards Roger Gutierrez when he won that fight. And I think I put a tweet out. I said to Eddie, I'll have that fight, no problem. The winner of Rene Alvarado or Gutierrez. But yeah, we're in the position now where I'm fighting for the IBF, so I'm not really bothered. But he's always been in the back of my mind.
I know Tony will be the man who does the studying of Ogawa. Obviously, you know what he's about. In terms of that fight with Fazili, kind of his one fight at world level, can you even take much from that? Because it's kind of not polar opposites, but you are two very, very different fighters for Ogawa.
Yeah, of course. Like, for me, I don't think Fazili is world level. I think he's fringe world level. When he boxed Martin and beat Martin, Martin was a shadow of his old self. I'd say a couple of years before that, Martin would have wiped the floor with him. He was carrying a heavy injury. 3 weeks before, he had an injury, and he was carrying it through the fight. And we seen his knee come out of the socket in the fight. So yeah, I think a couple of years before, Martin would have wiped the floor with him. But I'm a completely different fighter, like you said, to Fazili. And the fights I have had at world level is Tevin Farmer. But Tevin Farmer, I thought, won that fight, and he got done for doping. also. So yeah, I can't take too much from that. But yeah, even Fusili, like I ain't Fusili.
Yeah, that's the thing. In his most recent fight, when you're fighting someone like that who's very open to a right hand, and if you look at his record, he has got a fair few knockouts. All right, some of them were kind of early on the Japanese circuit, but he's very susceptible to a right hand. So, in terms of looking at that, is that something that makes you kind of double wary at all?
Not really. It's like every fighter is looking to slot a big backhand down the middle on every fighter, whether it's a right hand or a left hook. You just got to be switched on at all times and be prepared for one of them shots. And I'm prepared for his big backhand. I'm prepared for his big left hook, his left hook to the body, his overhand right. I'm prepared for everything that he throws at me. So, but he's got to be prepared for what I throw back at him. I know I'm not the one-punch KO artist, but at the same time, every time I'm going to hit you, it's going to hurt. And if I catch you right, it will put you away.
Is that kind of what we can expect from you? So if you take the focus off what he's going to do, focus on what you're going to do, dictate the pace, beat him to the punch, kind of what we normally see from you and have seen over the last few years, is that kind of the same mentality going into this then?
Yeah, it's not about what he does. It's about what I do. So whatever I decide to do, that's what will dictate the fight.
I do have to mention quickly before I let you go, Shakur Stevenson. It's kind of, I would say it's a carrot being dangled, but you've got the world title to win, and I know it's tunnel vision for that, but when someone of that fighter of that stature is mentioning coming over to the UK for a potential unification, it is going to be something you've thought about. It must have, because you're a boxing man, and I know that's just like, that fight is levels, you two in the ring. It's a levels fight.
I'd love that fight. Yeah, like we was in the Olympics together. He's a great fighter, like I've said before and previously. I'm a fan of his. I'm a boxing fan first and foremost, and I rate any boxer that's technically great, and he is technically great. But I back myself with anyone, and that's a fight I would love. And I visualize myself fighting many fighters, and he's one of them. So I've like shadow boxed, and I've had him in front of me when I'm shadow boxing. I've had 100 other guys fight in front of me also, and when I'm on a pad. So I'm that's what I'm like. I visualize certain fighters, because potentially down the line I could come up against them. I could fight them for all the marbles potentially. And this one, I get through Saturday night. That one could be for all the marbles.
Welcome, Team Everlast, to the Team Everlast Fitness app. Download the Everlast Fitness app and find your greatness within.